Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am so excited to show you all my Jane Austen July TBR. I found out about Jane Austen July just after I started my channel last year. However, I had already made a TBR of a ton of other readathons, so I couldn't participate fully, although I did read one or two new Jane Austen themed books and it was lovely. So I am so thrilled this year to be fully participating. The Readathon is run by Katie at Books and Things and Marissa at Blatantly Bookish, and this year they have also invited Claudia from Spinster's Library to help them out, and I will link all of their channels down below. The first prompt is to read at least one of Jane Austen's novels. This could be any of her main 6 novels. The Readathon focuses on 2 of those novels every year, so this year I will be rereading Mansfield Park and Persuasion along with the group. I have read both of these before. Both were good, but neither is my favorite. But I'm excited to see if I get anything new out of them this time around, especially because these Wordsworth Classic editions have the Hugh Thompson illustrations in them, which I have never seen for these novels before, so I'm very excited. The next challenge is to read something of Jane Austen's that is not one of her main 6 novels. So one of her unfinished works, or novellas, or juvenilia. So for that, I have chosen Catherine or the Bower, which Jane Austen started. I think it was destined to be a novella, but she never finished it. But Leo Rackus, who is actually a member of my Jasna group, took it upon himself to finish it. So he very kindly gave us these copies, and they're even signed. I have no idea what this is about, other than it will presumably feature a heroine called Catherine. But I am also intrigued to see whether or not I can tell where Jane Austen left off and where Leo started. He claims that you can't tell, but I've taken that as a challenge, so we'll see. Next is to read a book written by one of Jane Austen's contemporaries, so someone who was writing around the same time that she was. I've had to go slightly outside the ballpark on this one, but the closest thing that I owned was The Female Quixote by Charlotte Lennox. This was published before Jane Austen was born. This was published in 1752, but I am bending that prompt to say that this still counts because this could have been a novel that influenced Jane's writing herself, as she could have read it. This is, as the title suggests, a reworking of the Don Quixote tale, but playing on contemporary fears with the rise of the novel that they would influence those of weaker understanding a bit too much and cause them to gravely misinterpret the way the real world works. So we follow a young woman, Arabella, who has read far too many novels for her own good, and through various family goings-on, she is thrust into a narrative that sounds like that of a novel, but in the contemporary world she has very little control over it. But she knows that a literary heroine always has control of her own narrative, and so tries to find that control in the real 18th century. It sounds wonderful, and I've had this for a few years now, so I can't wait to see what it's actually like. Next is to read some non-fiction, either about Austen and her works or about her time period. So for this, I have chosen Austen Years by Rachel Cohen, which is subtitled A Memoir in 5 Novels. So this chronicles about a year of Rachel Cohen's life, and she is a professor at the University of Chicago. But during this particular year, she experienced 2 major life-changing events, one being the birth of her daughter, and the other being the death of her father. And during that year-long period, she exclusively read Jane Austen. And so she chronicles how reading Jane during that very difficult period of her life helped her figure out a new way to live. I got to hear her talk about this at an event last year, online of course, but it sounded wonderful, so I can't wait to discover it for myself. Next is to read some spin-off fiction, and here again I'm twisting the prompt a little bit because it's not exactly a spin-off of one of Austen's novels, but it's a spin-off of her life and her family. So I'm going to read Miss Austen by Jill Hornby, which I have heard nothing but wonderful things about. It's the story of Jane's sister Cassandra many years after Jane's death, and looking at why she burned and edited so many of Jane Austen's letters and her grieving process for her sister. Like I said, I've heard nothing but fabulous things, so I am very excited, if a little bit nervous, to see how wonderful and how emotional it's going to be. The next challenge is to watch a direct adaptation of a Jane Austen novel. So for this, I'm going to be watching 4 films in total. I'm going to watch the 1995 version of Persuasion, which I have never seen before, but I've heard wonderful things about, as well as the 2007 adaptation of Persuasion. This one I have seen and I have really enjoyed, even if I do like to play a game through one of the final scenes. In one of the final scenes, Anne Elliot is running through Bath to find another character, and it's supposed to be very dramatic and very exciting, but I just giggle through the whole thing because it was filmed in Bath. But after having lived in Bath, when I watched that scene, I just sit there going, there's no way you could have gotten from that place to that place in so short a period of time. They don't connect, you can't do that. So while the editing is a bit messy, I do love that film. I will also be watching 2 films of Mansfield Park. First, the 1999 adaptation, which I like, although it doesn't get Fanny exactly right, and the 2007 adaptation, which is better, but you still lose some pieces of the novel that I found really wonderful. There has been no great adaptation of Mansfield Park, but I'm going to watch them both and compare, contrast, see what I think. And the last challenge is to watch an indirect screen adaptation of one of Austen's novels. There are tons of web series that you can watch, but again, I'm twisting this a little bit, and I would like to rewatch Miss Austen Regrets, which also came out around 2007 or so, and is the story of the last years of Jane Austen's life. I remember loving it when I first saw it, when it came out on television when I was in high school, but I have recently gone back and discovered that Tom Hiddleston is in it, and I did not know who he was at the time. Now I do, and I love him. So I'm going back to rewatch him in an Austen adaptation. My 2 favorite things combined. If I have time after completing all of those challenges, I do have a few other books relating to Jane Austen and her time period that I could read. The first of which is Jane Austen's England by Roy and Leslie Adkins. This is just an overview of life in the Georgian and Regency eras, and I've heard lovely things, so I'd like to get to this at some point. Next is The Joy of Jane, which is a wonderful pamphlet which holds a collection of essays from a variety of scholars and writers about Jane Austen, such as, allow me to read, Maggie Lane, Deirdre LaFay, Margaret C. Sullivan, Carrie Bebris, Kim Wilson, Susanna Fullerton, and a variety of new authors who I do not recognize. So I am very excited to get to this potentially. The other one is Tea with Jane Austen by the aforementioned Kim Wilson, which is a history of tea during Jane Austen's lifetime. It really is. It's tea, social history, and Jane Austen. So that sounds really intriguing. And finally, I have a biography of Fanny Burney written by Claire Harmon, who is a wonderful literary biographer. And Fanny Burney was, of course, a contemporary writer for Jane Austen. And I have read Evelina. I haven't read some of her other novels, but I do want to in the future. So I'm excited to find out more about who she was herself. So there you have it. Those are my plans for Jane Austen July. In addition, if you are looking for other suggestions for Jane Austen July, you can, of course, check out our hosts and their channels. I also have a Jane Austen playlist on my channel where I have videos about Jane Austen books, fiction and nonfiction, and indeed adaptations that I love and adore. So you can find that playlist on my channel and have a poke around. I am also now a bookshop.org affiliate. So on my dashboard, which is linked down below, I have a list of some of my favorite Jane Austen nonfiction so far that can be purchased through bookshop.org. So if you have found any of the books that I mentioned either here or in my other videos interesting, check that out. If you'd like to order one for yourself, the proceeds will benefit whatever independent bookshop you would like. Could be one in your area or anywhere else in the world. After the year we've had, they could really use your love. Let me know down below if you are participating in what you are reading. Have you read anything else related to Jane Austen that I might enjoy? Let me know down below any and all of your thoughts, and until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.